Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Paranormal Saloon. I am, of course, your host, Jay Hill, and this is episode 10. I can't believe it's been 10 already. So, tonight we have a really good guest. Um, I will say that we've been having some internet connections, which it's common. So, if I get kicked off or if he gets kicked off, we'll have to deal with it accordingly. But hopefully, that crush fingers, everything works fine. So. Um, Everybody knows John, so I'm just gonna bring him on, and we can go from there. What's up, John?
Not much. How you been?
I'm all right. Uh, yeah, it's a little been a little sketchy with the internet. I'm actually having some issues myself. Um, but yeah, it just depends. It can happen anytime. But let's hope that everything goes the way it's supposed to. So. But anyways, everybody who is listening or who doesn't know who John Griffin II is, um, John, why don't you go ahead and tell a little bit about yourself for my listeners? Some of my people that already know who you are, but my new
S-
listeners will not.
Certainly. Well, I'm the CEO and founder of a paranormal team called You and I Research. We're based out of the Albany, New York area. I've been doing paranormal research over 22 years now. It'll be 23 years come this August. Uh, and basically live through a haunting. Our basically our team focuses on the uh, uh, understanding the physics behind spiritual activities. So we do all the fun uh, statistics and analysis that everybody gets so excited about. Uh, so uh,
Yeah.
we're we're most well known for doing outside the box experiments, and on top of that, um, I've had the privilege of being featured on multiple shows, being able to tell stories or do research. Uh, such as My Ghost Story, Caught on Camera, Paranormal 911, Paranormal Survivor, where my brother and I got to uh, talk about um, talk about our haunting. And there was another episode where I was on for a case that we worked on, as well as most recently Death Walker with Nick Groff's season 4, episode 12, and I'm also one of the main cast members for Dark Echoes Paranormal. So a lot going on,
Oh,
very busy, a lot of fun,
yeah.
uh, but I love what I do.
Right, right. Well, I know that you've been really busy, and I know that and a little bit, but let my listeners know that there was a time when you kind of were thinking about walking away from it all.
Yeah, I mean it's happened a couple times, especially within the past couple years. Um, for your listeners that may not be aware, my younger brother Jeremy, he was the chief science officer for my team, and he ended up taking his life on July 7th, 2021. It was something that uh, uh, it obviously had a huge impact on me. My brother was basically my best friend. He knew and understand. We understood each other very well, um,
Hmm.
and we lived through the haunting together. And for a long time, no one believed us about the haunting. Or well, I mean, I would just say my mother believed us. She just played the oh, it's just a bad dream or nothing, just to try to not
Right,
scare us. Uh,
right.
but I could tell you that month I almost hung everything up and said I'm done, because especially with Jeremy's note that he left for us, the last thing he wrote, and it was a message to me saying, "John, will be in touch, I promise." And people don't realize, like a
Hmm.
lot of people would look at it as this is positive, Which, yeah, that's a positive message for sure. He was thinking about me, but at the same time,
Right.
Jeremy and I, we have a deeper under. We don't have to
Mhm.
say what exactly we're thinking. We can you know, uh,
Mhm.
understand the underlying message. Uh,
Right.
and it's gotten intense. Like the research we're having, we're having major breakthroughs right now, and it's tough when you're trying to get it out there and show everybody, and it's just like you know, uh, you want to see the research progress, but
Mhm.
then it's a matter of how do you get it out there.
Right. Right. So let me ask you this in regards to uh your brother. How and I've seen your post on Facebook and other places in the past of uh Jeremy interacts with you quite a bit.
Oh yes, yeah, he is. He may have left physically, but it's one thing after the other with him.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
he's been guiding through the projects. It's almost like, and I kind of joked with him. Um, I mean, after his passing, I kind of jokingly said, "I'm going to make sure you're not allowed to retire." So,
Right.
uh,
Right. Right.
and I would say he
Right.
has.
And look at yeah, yeah, looking at that in a way where some people would be like, "Oh my god, that's devastating everything." But because of the field that you guys are in that you are into and what Jeremy was into, it's kind of like, you know, my kind of thought process of this is, I don't know all the particulars in the situation, but the way he helps you and the research that you've done is some groundbreaking work. And a lot of people really don't realize that Jeremy has a lot to do with you that research still.
Mhm,
And so, you know, it's not something that where people it's something that people that's a it's the person's gone physically and whatever, but with you, you have that faith that your brother
mhm,
is always with you. As me being who I am, and that's without a doubt, I know that that's true. I mean, it's one of those things where yeah, the situation was terrible in that sense, but yet you kinda almost had to look at it as in what you're gaining from that on that aspect, you know what I mean? You've
mhm.
lost, but you're still gaining, you know what I mean? So, um, I think that's kinda comforting, in my opinion. I don't know if you would agree, but I just, you know
It's hard to be honest, because knowing the things that I already know from the paranormal and such, but then the huge list of questions that go with it. Um,
Mhm.
there's still that thought lingering of because we were raised, when we were growing up, we were raised as uh, very religious. So
Mhm.
we have I always will have that thought process of you know what really happened to him in the spirit realm. Does he even exist anymore? All that, like, the mind, it's still there.
Right.
uh, there is some comfort when I hear his voice. um, there's
Right,
comfort
right.
there's
And
comfort
right, and
when
you've
I
gotten
see.
that on EVPs quite a bit, right.
Yes, oh yes.
You've gotten those, okay, okay. Right. So, with the EVPs and with your research and all that, and having him, still be there in that sense, are there projects that I almost get like he's kind of inspired you to try different avenues?
To a degree. So
Okay.
there was a point where he was becoming more intuitive, spiritual, focusing on the human body and trying to utilize that towards his scientific research. And I started to veer away from it, where I had a very intuitive aspect to myself, but I started to really close it off. Um,
Mhm.
that has switched back now because Jeremy was very adamant before he passed. He was like, John, you need to uh, there's a part that you're missing with this, and I think you're starting to become more close-minded to
Mhm.
utilizing the body's abilities. So,
Mhm.
um, but we've always had outside the box thinking. A lot of the stuff that we've been that is being shown now that that our team's doing um, was work that Jeremy and I had started. It's just progressed and it's become more ambitious, especially since his passing. Anybody who knows me very well, that's close to me, if uh, people have noticed, if I'm backed into a corner, that's when I
Mhm.
operate best. For some reason, I absolutely hate it, um, uh, but Jeremy's passing and me wanting to know what happened to him, is he okay, all that type of stuff. Um, that's kind of the spiral it put me down. I feel like I'm backed into a corner, and I do not want to leave this life not knowing what's going on.
Mhm.
I want to see my parents be able to heal better, knowing that or have be able to heal
Mhm.
more, knowing that Jeremy is he's still around, he's doing fine. Um, they get messages from him too. There's been intuitives who have given them messages. It's not the same. Um, so and
Mhm.
believe me, I've had plenty of intuitives say, oh, Jeremy's doing great, he's happy with the work that you're doing, and it's like I love to hear that stuff, but at the same time it's like I need to see Jeremy face to face. I need to hear him, I
That's
need to
it's
see him.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's kind of a not a cop out, but I mean it's just an easy way to try to reassure somebody. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And not to discredit that statement, but it's kind of like that repetitive, "Oh, I'm sorry for your loss" phrase. You know,
Yeah.
when somebody
Hmm.
passes and then all you hear is, "I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry," constantly. It's kind of like, yeah, I mom passed away. I didn't want to talk to anybody. I did not want to interact with family. I didn't want to interact. I didn't want anybody to tell me anything. You know, for me, it's the way deal with the death of anybody is I recluse myself into something that's like in a corner of a room, and I'll sit there until I can deal with it. You know what I mean? I don't want any interaction. I don't want, I have to process all of that information on my own. And it's great that people want to give, supportive, words and this and that goes with grieving territory. And I understand that.
Hmm.
But it's for me, it's just I don't want anything to do with it. I don't want people to acknowledge it. I just want to be able to deal with it on my own. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
that goes with animals. I lose an animal, I'm the same way. Don't come talk to me. I gotta
Oh,
deal with this. I've got to process this. So yeah, it's just everybody deals with death differently.
yeah. No, definitely, I definitely agree. And this was a hard one. Um,
Hmm. Oh yeah, I'm sure.
I've seen people pass. Like my great
Hmm.
grandfather passed. I've had plenty of family members pass. There was just something so different about this.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
and part of it was not just because he's my brother, but because of the way he went.
Hmm.
Because
Hmm.
this wasn't like it was medical or an accident. This was a choice.
Right, right, right,
So, but I mean, ultimately, it's he's still helping from the other side, and there's a lot of documentation to support that reality.
right. Let me ask you: does your brother still make you laugh?
He's still that, yeah, he's still that quirky person. He does do some pranks.
Right, right. I'm getting that he's kind of a little prankster, but more so into lighten the mood. If you're really in an intense mood yourself, you do your research or you're on an investigation or you're trying, you know what I mean? And sometimes you get really in depth inside yourself and it's like, okay, lighten up, man. Come on, you know? So Is there a moment when you can remember or that you can recall that um, Jeremy, while he was alive, would do something that would just either make you laugh or just kind of make you take back and just be like, "What was that?" You know?
He's had his. We both have very awkward sense of humor. It's semi goofy, semi dry.
Mhm.
So uh, I he always the one thing I always remember about him is the smirk. We always call it the
Okay.
smirk.
Okay.
And heck, there's pictures of him with the smirk. He, you knew if you saw that smirk, there was something mischievous going on.
Mhm.
And but he did it more. My favorite was when we were kids, and my father, Jeremy, and I, we were playing Mario Karts.
Mhm.
Um, and we were all very good at it. Let me tell you, it was competition. Uh, Jeremy, he would get to the finish line and he would purposely stop it just before the finish line and wait. Um, and as I'm, rolling up, or if it was me in second place and I'm getting close, uh, he, eh, I mean, yeah, he would slowly roll over the finish line, but he did it in such a snarky way, and he had the
Right.
smirk. He had the smirk going, looking, and just kind
Right.
of like
Right.
inching forward.
Yeah. That's funny. That's awesome.
Well, I did
You
it
know?
back to him. I try One of the times I did it back to him. I sat at the finish line, um, and I regretted it. He actually managed to do what I couldn't do. He threw an item at me. My character got hit, and he crossed over. I'm like, "You got to be kidding me!" I was sitting right there.
Right, so he knew those little tricks and the quirks of that. That's awesome. Yeah. So did he ever do anything like when you were on investigations?
uh,
Or was he pretty serious on investigations?
when it came down to actually researching, and this goes even for my the second in command for you and I research now, Katie Peak. Um, we go from goofy, funny to boom.
Right, right.
It's game time. Not saying that we don't have our fun, because we also know that we don't want to be bland with the spirits. Like if they're children spirit, we want
Right,
to be
right.
lighthearted. So
Mhm. Mhm.
we'll bring out our personalities, but we also understand that we're there to do a job. Um,
Right.
but that doesn't mean that every so often, that while we're getting ready and such, or we're starting to make our way, that we didn't do some little pranks here and there.
Right, right, right. Well, you gotta kinda keep it light. Sometimes it can't be like a somber, serious mode all the time. I mean, I've known some paranormal investigators that when they go to investigate and they're nothing but business, or all but business, you know what I mean? I mean, they're that's all they do is business, that's all they wanna do is business, and I get that, and that's their choice, they can do this, but I think
Mhm.
that when you are, you know, when you're in a room, it's dark, and you've got 5, 6 other people in there, and you're all standing there trying to be quiet. It's like being in high school when you're sitting in a classroom and it's all quiet in there, but somebody's gotta do something that makes everybody laugh, and that's you kinda break that tension because that's kinda I don't know, that's lightheartedness kinda
Oh yeah.
goes a long way, you know what I mean, when you're investigating, and I never really when I investigated, yeah, I wanted to keep it serious, but I wanted to be able to have some fun or laugh or joke, and just I don't know, that's just me.
It depends on what we're doing at the time. If there's something where we're really, where it requires us to be, super serious, because if we start goofing off or anything like that, it starts ruining, the data collection. uh
Mhm.
that's when we'll remain serious. But then there's going to be points where, yeah, like sitting in a quiet room, and uh there are points where we're I- you know I can't like remember any, like I'm right off the top of my head right now, the exact circumstances, but Jeremy would just he would randomly go, "Ooh, spooky," or something like that. um and it would be random. It would just be out of the blue, and like there would be something that would kind of prompt it, but
Right, right,
um, Jeremy would go from saying nothing to that's the first thing you hear after minutes of him just not saying a word.
right, right, right. It's almost kind of like you're kind of breaking the silence a little bit, but you're also doing it in a way that it's kind of comical. I get that. I could
Well,
see that.
he had his hand gestures. I mean, it wasn't just like him straight. There was the whole he did like a little jazz hands things to go with it. So,
Now that I can see that looks funny. Yeah, that would be pretty funny. So what do you have going on? I know that you're starting your this new project that you've been on for a little bit now. Uh, Talk a little bit about that and what your hopes are to um, get it come to light a little bit more.
well, it's picking up steam. Let me tell you. It's called Project Apparition Hall. This is actually the last thing that Jeremy and I worked on before he passed. Um, we were basically we've been trying to understand more about the composition of an entity, how they put themselves together, what are they truly made out of, and we wanted to increase the possibility of either getting photographs or video to you know bring everything together, because we were making great progress with EVPs, no
Hmm.
problem. We were increasing EVPs, increasing the possibility of getting Class A's and Class B's. Um, in other words, basically EVPs that were clear just for the audience.
Hmm.
But there were some experiments that we did that it was like, well, we need to be able to see them. Like
Right.
we can't. Our EVP study has gotten stalled
Hmm.
because um, we have found that there's certain things that we cannot measure without the ability of seeing them. So now this put us in a no choice position of we need to focus on apparitions, which is,
Hmm.
as as almost any paranormal researcher could tell you, is one of the hardest pieces of
Yep.
documentation to get.
Hmm.
Um, and it was actually Jeremy who caught. It was between three photos, but there was one main photo from Wilson Castle that he caught, and uh, we were trying to capture the manifestation process of an apparition. This was
Hmm.
back in September 2020, and he got the photo. It was very telling,
Hmm.
and that propelled us forward even further for Project Apparition Hall. And just before he passed, we were discussing about it, about switching up to the way that we sort of have it now. And then he passed, and he was
Hmm.
actually there's something sentimental about it because he was actually the first apparition that was ever caught um,
Oh
during
wow.
Project Apparition Hall.
Oh wow. I think that was kind of maybe done by design then. If you think about it.
Uh, the universe has its ways, I'm telling you.
Right, right, right. And that goes to that old saying, that kind of putting a face to the voice. You
Hmm.
really want to, you've done all the EVPs and you've got a lot of them and this and that, but you want to put a face to that voice. You want to put something physical or in a sense to that voice. So um, now talk a little bit about because I know that you have some really prophetic dreams.
Hmm.
And a lot of it has to do with the work that you do in the paranormal and stuff like that, and with Jeremy. But um, has some of your dreams really kind of prompted you to look at some of your investigations a little differently?
It kind of goes back to the whole the using the body as a sense, or
Hmm.
as a tool, so to speak. It has made me question things, because, like, Jeremy appearing. The one dream that I had with Jeremy, I forgot when he had it. It was within the year that he passed. Um, I was deciding whether I was going to leave my job and try to pursue the paranormal 24/7, and um, I was unsure.
Hmm.
I wanted to. I wanted to because I was like, if I can make it, if my research could get this far, with me working a full-time job as an administrator.
Mhm.
Where could I be if I had 24/7?
Mhm.
Uh, if I had 24, you know, that free time.
Right.
Jeremy, I had a dream when I was questioning that day, and I ended up having a dream where I was sitting in my parents' house. I was standing in the kitchen, and my parents were both. My mother was sitting on one chair, my father was sitting on the other. We heard a door open, the front door, and then close. It opened and closed, um, and I saw my parents looking down the staircase towards the front door. I can't. The position I was in, I couldn't see the front door. I realized that I was in I was in lucid dream. I
Mhm.
knew I was not awake,
Mhm.
and so I walked over to the stairs and looked down at the front door, and there was Jeremy. He was
Mhm.
dressed in his UNI research uniform. He had his white lab coat. He smiled at me and he nodded.
Mhm.
The dream ended,
Oh.
and uh, because I was trying to figure out whether or not I should leave or not, that was the last thing before I went to bed. I knew what he was telling me.
Right. Right.
Um, but that led to another question too about dreams themselves, because and so I, you know, he appeared in the dream. Okay,
Mhm.
and the other thing too was when I woke up, part of the end of my bed, kind of rose up as if someone just sat up.
Mhm.
Um, there are three questions or three possibilities I was looking at with it. Does does a spirit um, create the environment in which they're going to appear in? Is Does our mind create the environment and the spirit appears in it?
Mhm.
Um, are they even actually in the dream at all? Because you wake up and here they are at the edge. I've noticed with other stories that it
Mhm.
always seems to be by the feet.
Mhm.
So this led into like a study called the limitations of ghosts. Now I want to understand. I have a list of all these different types of activity that they could do: pushing objects, appearing, disappearing, appearing in dreams, influencing
Mhm.
thoughts, all these different things. Uh, so now what I'm going through is a process of elimination, of understanding what their limitations are, which is also going towards Project Apparition Hall, because if I understand what they're truly made out of, I can understand how they could affect the human body. I could understand how they could affect society as a whole when you look at it from a grand scale. Because
Mhm.
if they can influence a person, one person, I mean, who's to say that spirits aren't talking to each other or coming up
Right.
with
Right.
plans? Or so there could be multiple spirits talking to each other and saying, "Okay, we're going to arrange this scenario so these two people come together. Here's how this is going to work."
Mhm.
And they start influencing and we still have that free will, but they play a role in like two people coming together, and it'll be up to those two people on how that goes.
Mhm.
Uh, the studies have just gone through so many different things. I could tell you, um, there were points, there was a very recent one. Um, it was last year, and I was like, "Is this real life?"
Mhm. Mhm.
It was that crazy.
I think
Um,
everybody's had that thought process at one point in their life.
well, one case scenario, and this is how serious it was. One of the case scenarios that it wasn't a dream. I did was getting a message, and it ultimately caused me, or I ended up being involved in a small way of saving somebody's father's life,
Oh, wow.
and that was through spirit.
Mhm.
Um, so, and it seems like they've been training me. It's been really weird. August 7th of 2024, I ended up getting like a message. I need to do Project Apparition Hall at an event at Wildwood Sanitarium,
Mhm.
and so I have text messages I sent to Katie saying, I need the laser. I feel for the experiment. I feel like something's going to happen.
Mhm.
get to Wildwood Sanitarium on August 11th. Somebody was doing a spirit box session while I was downstairs, where we were going to do Project Apparition Hall,
Mhm.
and over the spirit box, the spirits were telling them, stop with the spirit box session, wait for John.
Hmm.
That night, we caught some of the best apparition photographs we've caught uh, ever.
Wow.
Um, uh, this was all leading up. Some other events occurred that were similar to that. Um, it led up to the November event, where one of she's also a part of Dark Echoes, Jacqueline.
Mhm.
She invited me down to an event, and I had the choice to show up either November 4th or 5th. Um, and I decided the 5th. Go figure, election night. Um,
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
uh, and I remember I had to take out, you know, the to get into her event. It was $99, um,
Mhm.
and I was at the ATM that day. I took out the money for that, but then I got a message going, seeing myself take out another 100.
Hmm.
I'm like, okay, well, there were certain things that I've noticed that if I get like a certain feeling, vision, stuff like that, it's like I can
Right.
tell
Right.
it's not my
Yep.
thought.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, you know what? I'll take out the extra 100. So I
Okay.
did that. Um, she was supposed to have 14. I think it was 14 other people show up to her event. They all canceled.
Oh, wow.
I was the only one who showed up, and the reason was because I think it was the hurricane that happened. And they were in the
Mhm.
area that got impacted.
Right.
So I went down. We did our research. Uh, nothing too crazy or nothing too crazy about that part.
Mhm.
Um, the event ended the next morning. I was getting ready to go, but I decided to hang out with Jacqueline for a little while. There was just this feeling like, just hang out with her.
Right.
I hung out. I'm talking to her. Her friend John, they both came together in the same car that they were packing up,
Mhm.
and they were like, "Oh, you don't have to stay. Like, I don't know if you feel like you have to stay, but you can go. And
Mhm.
this is West Virginia, so I'm 10 hours away from home for me.
Right.
Um, Jacqueline needed to get to her father because her father was not doing well medically, and he was by himself. So as soon as she left there, she had to drive. I don't know if it was 12 hours or something like that. It was an
Oh,
extended
wow.
period of time. She had to get there. Um, uh, I was like, oh, okay. So I mean, I drove away. 5 minutes later, I get a call from Jacqueline asking if I could jump her car, and I was only 5 minutes away. So I was like, yeah, no problem. I turned around.
Mhm.
Um, and now, I stayed until about noon. Most people get up at about 9, she said, from the event and leave. So keep in mind, like, I would have been 3 hours away already had I
Mhm.
left at the regular time.
Right. Right.
I went back. We tried to jump her car. Her car, when we tried to jump it, when they turned it on, the dashboard lit up like a Christmas tree. It would not start. It had engine failure and everything.
Hmm.
So this was very odd. Um, I took her down to a mechanic shop that was further away. At this place, it was Shawnee's. So this is like in the middle of top of a mountain. Essentially, there's
Mhm.
nothing there.
Right. Right.
The mechanics that were several miles away said they would not be able to take her vehicle for about 3 days.
Oh, wow.
So, at this point, she's in tears. I drove her back to Shawnee's, and while she was out, she was uh, trying to figure things out because she kept on saying, "I got to get to my dad. I got to get to my dad." All of a sudden, I had the vision of the $100 in my pocket. I'm like, I
Right.
took it,
Right.
I took it out. I'm like, what's $100 gonna do? She has
Right.
her vehicle's potentially dead. I mean, is that
Mhm.
$100 gonna buy her a car?
Right. Right. Right.
Uh, and I heard my brother's voice say, "You know what to do." And
Don't you just love those cryptic messages? You know? I mean, if I like a nickel for every time I heard that, I'd be rich.
Yeah. Well, now I'm headed in that direction now. I went
Right.
to the back. I went to the back of the car, my vehicle, took out my dowsing rods, and I asked him. I said, I was like, "This isn't my money, is it?" And they were like, "Nope."
Nope.
And I was like, "Okay, do I give her part of it or all of it?" Rods went to all of it.
Okay.
Then another spirit guide of my name, Richard, came over.
Uh-huh.
I heard him, and well, sorry. I asked one other question: is she going to accept it? Because she seemed like she was being pretty stubborn with her friend about about the ideas of what they should do.
Mhm.
The answer was no. She's not going to accept it. Um, and then I heard Richard say, "Trust the process."
Mhm.
So I caught Jacqueline off guard after that session. I caught Jacqueline off guard, and I had the $100 in hand. And I said, "You need to take this." And she's like, "What? What? You need to take this. Um, I'm being told that you need this. I don't know what the reason is." And I said, "After everything I've told you that I've gone through this year with all these that they seem to know things before they happen,
Mhm.
just trust me on this." And she was, "I can't." And she kept on doing that. I can't. I'm like, I finally said, "Trust the process." And she took it. She didn't look. She literally just took it out of my hand, said thanks, put it in her wallet. She didn't even look to see how much she had.
Right.
Put it in her pocketbook, excuse me. And I drove away. And so when I drove away, I thanked God and I thanked Jeremy and Spirit Guide Richard. I
Mhm.
was like, you know, I know it's in your hands now. Whatever happens, happens. Thank you for giving me the chance to help. Please let her get to her father, okay? Jacqueline went through three other towing companies. They said they would do it, but help, but they were on strike. They didn't know that, so they would say they would do it through the third party company, but then they wouldn't show up.
Mm.
The fourth towing company, they showed up, but they said they will only take cash.
Huh.
And so she asked, because they didn't have a price at the time. She asked them, "Okay, well, how much?" And they said, we'll tow your car for $100."
Yeah.
She That's when she went into her pocketbook, pulled out, and she was like, "I don't know how much John gave me." And she said, it's when she talked to me, she was like, "My heart sunk. It was exactly $100." She started thanking God, thanking Jeremy, thanking Spirit God Richard, myself, and gave the 100. She got her car towed. The car it was the problem was figured out, and that's a whole nother thing that happened.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, she got back out on the road. She got to her dad. When she got there, she had to get her dad on the ambulance.
Mhm.
That's how bad it was. Uh,
Right.
it was worse than she expected. And when she got to the hospital, the doctor said, "One more day,
Mhm. Mhm.
your father would have been gone."
Wow.
And
Wow.
so now I look at this as like they give me a message, and I'm like, it was just $100, but a
Right.
hundred bucks saved a life. And if I had ignored it, if I had chosen, I'm going to hold on to it. Um, if I had not listened, if I had
Mhm.
not realized that there was a sign happening, somebody's life would have changed that day.
Right. And with that, it's stories like that that people are afraid to tell. I mean, the people don't quite understand, are more worried that telling a story like that to somebody is going to give them some type of ridicule or whatnot. But it's stories like that that inspire people. You know, I mean, I've been through that where I've had to do almost exactly the same thing you did,
Mhm.
where I heard the message in the morning that said, "You pay attention today." And I was like, great, that's a cryptic message. I can pay
It's
attention,
cryptic.
So I was like, oh my gosh. By the time I got home, I had the same thing. pay attention. And I did. And the whole thing unfolded. And I ended up giving a car to somebody. I was trying to sell it to fix my other car or to put plates on my other car. And
Hmm.
but this guy needed it. I listened to Spirit. I gave it to him. And I told him, I said, this car dies at stop signs. I'm just letting you know now. The guy had that car and called me like a week or so later and said, yeah, I've never had a problem with this car. I'm like, really? I'm like, okay, that's fine. you know so a lot of these stories and a lot of what people believe in spiritual intervention and all that stuff, that's really becoming more popular than people realize.
Hmm.
It's that inspirational story that you want to be able to share with somebody, like your story. um that I mean, I was enthralled listening to the whole thing, you know what I mean? And that's what people want to hear, especially when they're sitting in their car on the five in California listening to this podcast on their radio. They want to hear that story because they're stuck in traffic or they're this or that. And what people don't realize is that when people hear inspirational stories like that, um, it makes them think kind of outside the box. It makes them
Hmm.
kind of think, you know, man, I wish I could do that. Well, just saying it and wishing for it and kind of like, putting those wheels in motion. Whereas someday, who knows, the universe will use you to help somebody. I've been used quite a bit to help other people, you know. But the one thing I will not do is I don't take any credit. I can't. It's because it's not. It wasn't something I thought of beforehand and said, "Yeah, I'll take credit for that," because that's not how it works. So it's kudos to your spirit guides and spirit that
Hmm.
that they chose you to do that, and to help her out. And it makes you feel
Yeah.
good. I mean, I'm
Oh
not
yeah.
gonna lie. I mean, it's an emotional rush that you did something good for somebody, and it makes you feel better. It's like it's not. It's a different feeling than what, like, say your team wins. A sporting event. It's a completely different joy. And a lot
Hmm.
of people don't realize that. Even opening the door for somebody during the day. Like if you go to the grocery store and you hold the door for somebody, even though they weren't going to hold it for you, you held it for them. You know what I mean? And so it's small moments like that that make a difference.
Absolutely. And the kicker, I mean, I had never met Jacqueline prior to that. I mean, we were friends on Facebook, but we've never talked.
Right.
I met her through there was a Dark Echoes live event that was uh, that was put on at a place called Palmyra, and
Mm-hmm.
that's where I met Jacqueline.
Hmm.
And you know, we got along very well, so you know, we started talking. And we realized we wanted to do. She really wanted me to come to the place that she loves, which I mentioned is Shawnee's. That's like her second home, like much like Wildwood Sanitarium is mine.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so, you know, she invited me down to the event, and I was like, okay, yeah, you know what? Yeah, yeah, we had a lot of fun. I mean, um, we had a lot of fun at the Dark Echoes thing. We did Project Apparition Hall there. So I mean, if you, for those who haven't had an opportunity to see it, there we did a live. You know, I had talked with Matt, who's the host of Dark Echoes. Um, he gave me the opportunity to do that, and um, I'm grateful. People absolutely loved it. We got great results from it. Jeremy actually appeared there.
Mm-hmm.
That was I was like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
But you know, like I said, it was a great event, and people should definitely check that out too, because like I said, you'll see a bunch of different investigation tactics, but you'll also see Project Apparition Hall as well. And
Where can you find that at?
they have a I know I think it was broadcast, if I'm not mistaken, on Paraflix, but I also know it's on the Dark Echoes Paranormal TV show Facebook page.
Okay. 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 Yeah. So people who are listening and want to check that out, yeah, you definitely any type of work that you do, John. I mean, I'm always enamored with because I know that you come up with some different ideas, and I've followed you and I've known you now for a few years, and it's just it's always been great to see some of the new stuff that you're doing. Because you're it's kind of a groundbreaking stuff. I mean, a lot of people aren't you in that sense, where you want to do that type of research when there's other people in there, and not saying that it's a bad thing, but I'm just saying, other people go in there just to investigate and not do, they don't go the extra mile and they just, go in there to do what they want to do. You know what I mean? It's just to find ghosts or EVPs or whatever, So, that leads me into this next little segue here. With all of the different teams and different investigation styles out there, and I know that there's a lot of them. Is there one that you really think, hey, they're really doing something good?
I mean, I wouldn't say that there's much standout in my opinion. I've seen, trying to think offhand because I've worked with a bunch of people. Uh, there's and I noticed that a lot of people are starting to look more into doing different experiments and such.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, so I can't name like right off the top of my head, but I
Mm-hmm.
can tell you that there's well, I know Rick, like for instance Rick Perry. I hope I'm not butchering this too much. Like Western New York paranormal. He,
Okay.
look up Rick Perry. He's awesome. He helped
Okay.
me build the spirit box. He he has different methods. He's a very like fun, outgoing guy when
Mm-hmm.
it comes down to investigations. He builds his own equipment. Um, and it was actually his spirit box as well as Jeff Fent's spirit box that convinced me to look into spirit boxes. So
Mm-hmm.
I do find inspiration from other people and their equipment. I'll tell you, for about 20 years, I could not stand spirit boxes.
Right. Right.
Period. Um, and part of the reason was from a scientific standpoint. I need to be able to measure things. I need to be able to do numbers. How do I measure something like this? I just can't. And the results that I kept on hearing other people getting up, they're like, "Oh, it said this." I'm like, I didn't hear that.
Right.
Um, when you hear your brother's name, full name, Jeremy Griffin, come over a spirit box and you hear his voice, how do I argue that?
Right. Right.
Um, I find personally, because I'll be honest, I don't really pay attention to what a lot of people are doing out there. Like, I'm not watching a
Mm-hmm.
lot of the videos and such.
Right.
A lot of my uh, seeing the different investigation styles is me actually meeting up with them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's where I find like the different discussions, like Rick Perry, like his thoughts.
Right. Right.
Jeff Fent, he's doing things with like a mirror room.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to learn like why he's doing that. What's his thought process?
Mm-hmm.
Um, which I know they have that at Madison Seminary. They have this mirror room. Jeff Fent showed me it. I was just like, oh my goodness.
Right.
um, I thought that was cool.
Yeah.
Um, but I the whole and I know I'm kind of like going back and forth here. The whole reason that we've gotten to the point of making the advancements that we're getting and thinking way outside the box and all that is because of the data collection that we get. And I know it's boring, it's annoying. Who really
Mm-hmm.
wants to sit there and break down things?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but that has actually what led us to Project Apparition Hall and how that worked.
Mm-hmm.
The study of the EVPs and increasing the quality and the frequency of them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it, but I've seen that from other people too. Like if they display some evidence online, their apparitions. Uh, I could tell you from investigating with like Nick Roth.
Mhm.
Um, uh, he was very genuine.
Mhm.
Um, and it was interesting because what you see on the show, it seems more somewhat basic. Like he goes around with his geoport, he's asking questions.
Mhm.
He'll set up some equipment, maybe some sensors or something like that.
I love those geoports. Those are awesome.
Yeah, no, and uh, when I talked to him off outside of filming, um, he had a much deeper thought process than what he actually shows on the show.
Hmm.
Like we got into like the meaning of life, the universe, and everything, and I was just like, I'm in heaven right now. Is this
Right.
happening? Like,
Right. 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 Yeah.
um,
But
yeah. I mean, like, not right off. I can't speak right off. I've met a lot of really good people that had different ideas.
mhm.
Um, and you know, I don't judge. I don't really judge the ideas when I see them. Instead, my science mind is more of I want to understand why. Why did you
Mhm.
choose to do this?
Mhm.
Um, because I've noticed that there's people who have some experiences in the paranormal I've never had, and I
Mhm.
have a wide range of experiences.
Right.
But they're telling me that they've done this because of X experience. I want to know about that experience. I want to know what their thought process is. What's their hypothesis? Like, what brought you to this moment?
Mhm.
Um, because to me, it could be that person that says that one thing that we have the missing piece of the puzzle, and we just have to connect it, and
Mhm.
boom, you have it.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I think that a lot of there's a lot of different people out there that are doing some really cool things, and and the reason why I just asked you that just because of the fact that I know that you do a lot of different things, and I didn't know if there was anybody in particular that you really liked in some of their stuff that you did, but which is fine. But when it comes down to the research and the time and the quality and all that stuff, it's more or less it kind of goes back to that adage of quality before quantity.
Mhm.
And um, whereas in you know I mean we both used to watch Ghost Hunters. I mean, come on.
That was the
When it
first
first
ghost show
came,
I ever watched.
yeah, yeah, same here. And loved the cast, and and it was just they were doing something groundbreaking in that sense, but they had been doing that for years before,
Hmm.
until somebody decided to give them a TV show and said, hey, why don't you guys do this on TV? But as since then, I mean, there's been a lot of great investigators and a lot of people in the
Hmm.
paranormal that have made some groundbreaking um, claims about stuff, and you've done some great work. And I mean, there's other people that I know that have also done some great work, but I think that kind of gets overshadowed because of the fact that um, a lot of the TV shows don't show that. Like you said, it would be if they actually sat there, they'd be like super boring, and people would be like, "Why am I watching this?" But it's really you're getting all that information, you're getting the documentation, you're getting it's all about the numbers. And Shane Feek, he's the same way, and him and his stuff that he builds. And it's all about zeros and ones. And
Yeah. Well,
so
there was a I mean another person that Lauren Hellickson.
mhm,
Um, that's another person that we haven't had a chance to research together, but we've talked about our work together as she builds equipment as well. Um, Smart as a whip.
mhm,
Uh, she is also very big into the numbers and is also doing some really, in my opinion, is working on some groundbreaking stuff as well.
mhm.
So, um,
Yeah,
yeah.
the paranormal field is becoming more of a really exciting, um more exciting, and more eventful, and more, it's just the people are really starting to do their homework. you know
Hmm.
and I think there's a lot of the whole YouTubers and trying to get fame and trying to get this and that. It's like, I mean, I just don't. The jump scares are kind of going out the window. I think that a lot of the people are like, yeah, that's really cool to watch on TV, but how did you get to that point? What
Yeah.
caused that? People are going to really start asking questions when you're watching the show. You want to know how it happened or how it get there or who did this or who did. It's like watching a mystery, and anybody that doesn't know about mystery, go watch Scooby Doo. You know, when I was growing up, it was that's then that's being scared and being the whole trying to find out the mystery of things. I mean, it's just so it's keeping it simple, but it's also keeping it a little bit more involved where people can actually say, "That's really cool the way that happened," and that kind of scared me. But when they find out how it happened, or the possibility of how that happened, that makes it even more entertaining to people. They want to
Yeah.
know the truth of where it came from. You know,
Absolutely.
especially for mediums like myself. I mean, it's more like the validation. You find the validation. You go into a haunted place, and it's like, oh yeah, this, that, and that, and that, and it
Well,
all lines up. You know.
that's the one thing that they're doing on the Dark Echo show is uh, they have some spectacular mediums.
Hmm.
Um, and let me tell you something. I can't talk. I mean, I can't talk about it. NDA, all that type of stuff. But
Right.
um, just wait until you see. I mean, they already have some good stuff out, but just wait until you see some of the stuff that comes out. I've personally witnessed one, and I my jaw almost like hit the floor.
Hmm.
Um, and I can't wait for people to see that one. You're not going to see me. I was not on camera for that, but for that one. But
Hmm.
I was I'm in the episode, but I wasn't on camera for
Right.
that point.
Right.
I saw I was listening. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. Um, and this is why it's to me it's important to involve the mediums
Yep.
and um, because it's it there's hints in there.
Right.
There
Right.
is.
There's
So
there's hints. There's clues. There's things that really can the validation. Like I said, the validation of somebody not knowing makes the difference in that because
mhm.
people are going to say, yeah, I don't believe that. They say this, that, that. If you've got somebody that can validate that beforehand, and they come together and they weren't doing it before, and they had the same idea. Come
Well,
on,
that's
you
well,
know.
that's what Matt does with his show is he will make sure that the mediums that are coming or the medium, excuse me, there's a medium featured for the episode.
Hmm.
Um, the medium will not know where they're going.
Hmm.
They're driven to the location.
Yep.
They're blindfolded. Uh,
Yep.
they don't know, and so and if he finds that one of the mediums for the show has been there, they cannot be the medium for that episode.
Right. Right.
So it's just amazing.
Yeah. It's speaking of mediums, yeah, about a year ago or so, I worked with Taryn Kerper,
Mhm.
and she was doing an investigation in Gettysburg, and I was doing a remote walkthrough with her. Um, and that was fun. I mean, that was really that whole thing of interaction um, was just, and that's the whole thing, and that's connecting with spirits in that sense. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Having spirits come up to you and interact, especially being a medium and being gifted like that. Yeah, I get all kinds of messages all the time, you know, but I haven't been able to really, nobody seems to, kind of want to enlist me in their investigations because I do a lot of remote. I do it on my phone,
Hey, hello.
you know.
We're still waiting to meet up with you.
Yeah, yeah.
100. I'm still looking forward to that. Like I know we talked about it in we want to catch up in person. So
Right. 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 Yeah. Yeah. And I would love to go to Wildwood. And yeah, yeah. I'm just fascinated with all the work that you've been doing, and I think that you've got a really good thing going. And gosh, it's already been an hour. God, we've talked for an hour. Holy crap! Right? Yeah. So, tell everybody where they can find all of this new stuff that you got going on, and where they can find you. And
well, they can find us on YouTube at uh, sorry, YouTube at the Path to Communication. Um, Facebook, we just launched our within the past uh, month or two, we launched Project Apparition Hall. But to be clear on that, when you look it up, it's
Mhm.
you have to put Hall at the end because there is a page called Project Apparition.
Oh,
Um,
okay, okay.
so Project Apparition Hall, and we also have a GoFundMe going on.
Mhm.
We're trying to get a pilot episode as well as, and I don't. A lot of people don't know this, but when it comes down to the uh, what they're seeing already for Project Apparition Hall, we're only testing elements of it. We haven't built the first prototype hall yet.
Mhm.
This is all the build up to it. So that's what the GoFundMe is there for. So if you go to GoFundMe, you can look up. Actually, it's called uh, "Help Me Keep My Brother's Work Alive," but we also have the link to it in Project Apparition Hall page as well.
Mhm. Mhm. Okay. Wow. So, yeah, everybody, check out John. I mean, it's just been such a fantastic episode just talking with you and kind of reconnecting with you and seeing how you're doing and everything. And I'm glad that Jeremy kind of chimes in every once in a while. You know what I mean? He really wants me to come out there to Wildwood Sanitarium, and I really want to get out there. So I think I'm I'm gonna have to work something out with you this year to get out there, because it's only like, I don't know, 10 hours from my house. So
That's well, it's with stops. It's about 5 hours. 5 hours for me. The West Virginia, that was a 10-hour drive, and oh man, that was brutal. So like,
right, right, right. But yeah, so
it's worth it.
yeah, I would agree. I'm sure it will be worth it. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in and listening and watching this. Um, I have another episode soon. I will be setting that up in the next couple days or so. But I also wanted to let everybody know that I have something going on um, with another show that I'll be on, and I'll be posting that soon and that information. So I want to thank everybody again. I want to thank our guest, John. It's been wonderful. So thank you, everybody. Have a fantastic evening, and we will see you next time.